All right, Vicky, thank you very much indeed, Vicky Young. And let's talk now to the political commentator, Iain Dale. And Iain, you chaired, I think, 10 of the hustings in this leadership contest. Did the result go roughly as you were expecting?
Roughly. I thought it might be a bit tighter, actually, because a lot of the undecideds at the hustings, I think, actually gravitated towards Jeremy Hunt. But this is an emphatic victory for Boris Johnson. No one can say that 2/3 of the vote is anything but emphatic.
What did you think of his campaign? It started off not too well with all the stories about the row, and you questioned him about that in one of your hustings. But did he manage to escape the banana skins in the end?
Well, he did, because a week after that nobody was talking about it, which was interesting to say the least. I think, look, his campaign managed to say their strategy was completely vindicated. They kept him wrapped up in cotton wool for the parliamentary stages. He hardly did any interviews. I did hour-long interviews with 11 of the candidates. He was the only one that didn't do an interview. And they will say, well, we won, so that vindicates the strategy. I think you're going to see a very different Boris Johnson now. I think you're going to see him out and about far more than any other recent Prime Minister. I think he'll be a bit like Tony Blair, sort of being everywhere. And I don't think he'll sort of hunker down in the Downing Street bunker like Gordon Brown did or Theresa May has done.
And very different also in terms of what he said, because he kept saying the rhetoric was pretty strong, do or die, we are getting out of the EU by October the 31st. Does he really mean that?
He does. I think he does mean it, and he's going to be judged on it. So in 100 days' time, and that's all that's really left, the electorate will judge him, Conservative Party members will judge him, and Conservative MPs will judge him. The ERG group are going to judge him, and if they decide that he's flaked away on Brexit in any way or gone soft on it, believe me, retribution will be very swift.
But does part of him want a deal, and can he get a deal? Can he succeed in a deal where Theresa May fails?
I know very few people in the Conservative Party. I mean, I can only really think of John Redwood, who said, I don't want a deal. Most people think in an ideal world we would leave with a deal. But as Jeremy Hunt has said throughout the contest, if a deal looks impossible by the end of September, then there is only one way to go. Now the question then is Parliament going to frustrate that? And if it is, we can then look forward to a general election at the end of October.
But a lot of people are saying we don't really know what Boris Johnson thinks. We know what we've heard from him, we've heard the rhetoric, but him as Prime Minister in number 10 Downing Street could be quite a different proposition.
Well, we haven't heard detailed plans from either of them in this campaign. In a sense, on Brexit, I wouldn't expect to, because the last thing that Boris Johnson was going to do was publish a 100-page paper on his negotiating strategy. That would have been a lunatic thing to do. That's where Theresa May fell. She did give away far too much of the so-called strategy, even though it's kind to call it a strategy. So I hope there is a document somewhere in his bottom drawer that he is going to take out, and that he knows exactly what he's going to do, because there isn't much time to do it. Michel Barnier constantly tells us the clock is ticking. Well, the clock has ticked almost, and he's only got 3 months to do this.
But even if he wants to, could he get no deal through Parliament, through this place, where we hear Philip Hammond and others are going to be the new rebels on the backbenches who are going to be fighting him, stopping him?
Yeah, and I think the way these people have behaved, I mean, they always criticise the ERG for their disloyalty. Well, they're copying ERG tactics by doing this, resigning before they had to. We saw it with Alan Duncan yesterday. I mean, David Gauke today, who is one of the nicest people in politics, to actually announce that you've resigned just as Boris Johnson gets up on his feet, I thought that was an absolute disgrace. And it is going
doesn't that just show how disunited the party is?
Yes, it does. And I'm afraid the party is as disunited as the country. And in a sense, the Conservative Party reflects the mood of the country. Everyone wants everyone to come together, but no one can quite see a way of that happening.
But there could be as many as 50 Tory MPs who oppose no deal. So I ask you again, can you get it through Parliament?
Well, no deal is the default. But legally, we do leave the EU on October the 31st. And the other thing that nobody's mentioning is that Emmanuel Macron, the President of France, could insist that we leave on October the 31st. I mean, they're saying, oh, we might extend it. Well, I'm not sure that every single European country will want to extend it this time. So he could actually rely on the French to do his dirty work for him. Wouldn't that be an irony?
And we've talked about the disunity of the party. Does Mr Johnson now try to restore unity with his cabinet choices? Is he going to pick Remainers for his cabinet as well as Brexiteers?
I think that's going to be very interesting to see what he does. With the 2/3 of the vote, I think he's got an almost free hand. The key to this will be to watch what happens to Jeremy Hunt, and I imagine that's the first conversation. You would think that with the conflict with Iran at the moment, Jeremy Hunt would be guaranteed to stay where he is. He did a good campaign. Okay, he only got 33% of the vote, but I think most people would say he deserves to stay as Foreign Secretary. There is a thought that he could be actually promoted to Chancellor. Did you know he was an entrepreneur? I mean, I don't know if you'd picked that up over the course of the campaign, but I mean, I think that would be an interesting move. He's got some radical thoughts on economic policy, but I don't think he's going to accept anything else. He has said he will accept a job under Boris, but I can't really imagine him going back to sort of what will be deemed as a second-rank cabinet role.
Going to be fascinating to see. Iain Dale, for the moment, thank you very much indeed for your analysis. Well, let's get some context now from Northern Ireland, because as we've been hearing, the biggest challenge facing the new Prime Minister is, of course, Brexit, and in particular trying to avoid that hard Irish border. And Emma Vardy is at Stormont for us. Emma, the issue of the backstop so critical. What is the reaction there to the news that Boris Johnson has, as expected, become Tory party leader and will become Prime Minister tomorrow?